are we really busy? Are we being impactful? Are we being discerning about how we use our time? There's a lot of things in life you don't need, and we are not going to be having those things on this podcast, on this YouTube channel. We are going to have things that you need that are going to help you live a life that you've just barely even dared to dream, and you will dream even bigger. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So great to have you here. Today, I am talking about who do you need to keep happy so that you can have a successful career or life or relationship. Like, this isn't just for like one thing. Like, we like to separate things, but it's life. Like, who do you need to keep happy to have a successful life? And trust me, this is definitely going to pay off in your career. Doesn't matter if you are someone who manages, if you get managed, if you are a business owner, or if you work a salary job, or even if you're in school still. This is going to help with no matter what. And this is an amazing lesson that I learned, and I've been living for well over a decade. I learned this working in Germany. Before we get to that, do want to acknowledge that this should be the first episode going out on YouTube. Been working for about a couple months with my amazing assistant, Christine, who's been, putting together the intros and the outros and the flow so that we can really make sure that this podcast and the information just flows really well on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, so great. Welcome. Good to see you. Um, and I'm not worrying about this being perfect because I'm wearing my I am Knuff t-shirt in celebration that things don't have to necessarily be perfect. They just need to be done and attempted. Done beats perfect. And I mean, I've so excited for this to be happening, for this to be out there. And to those of you still listening on the podcast apps, wherever podcasts are heard, downloaded, viewed, thank you for listening, whether this is your first show or maybe you've been with me for I think this is episode 164, all of those previous episodes. Thank you so much. To celebrate a little bit of on a new platform, doing new things. The show is also called Engineered. That that my book is called Engineered to Love. But this podcast just going to be engineering emotions and energy with Justin Wake, Ph.D. That's me. So just a little bit simplifier because I know you're busy. I'm busy, but are we really busy? Are we being impactful? Are we being discerning about how we use our time? Why use extra words like the and podcast when you don't need it? There's a lot of things in life you don't need, and we are not going to be having those things on this podcast, on this YouTube channel. We are going to have things that you need that are going to help you live a life that you've just barely even dared to dream, and you will dream even bigger. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So, going to be getting into the main topic. I do want to talk about a couple things that I've been into, so that it's like, hey, what's Justin been up to? What's he been into? So by the shirt, if you've seen the Barbie movie, you might know, like, be like, oh, Justin saw the Barbie movie. If you haven't, um, you might be like, why the hell did Justin watch? Why did this man watch the Barbie movie? And why is he so late? Wasn't that summer of 2023? So yes, I was a little slow. I watched the Oppenheimer of the Barbenheimer, and I missed the Barbie last year. But I'd heard good things, and I finally watched it a little bit ago, and I was so delighted that I got inspired actually by a shirt related to the movie because it really is. I would recommend it to anyone. It's not just for women. I'd say this is a movie for everyone because I feel like what's so amazing about it is I felt like just about everyone had an arc where they learned, they grow, they ended up better off. And I really kind of felt like I liked just about everybody at the end of the movie. There was maybe one character that I was like, at the end, I'm like, all right, this is kind of lame. But as far as a big budget Hollywood blockbuster type, that's incredible to only kind of have one character that is sort of lame and cliche and just that you would kind of see just about in every other single blockbuster. Otherwise, I felt like almost every character, especially the Kin character, which I thought was just really incredible, that there was a lot I related, and I don't want to spoil it, but um, where most of his life starting in the movie is like it's only like he's only happy if Barbie pays attention to him. And I know I felt earlier in my life that it's like, oh, I only feel good like if I'm getting paid attention to by people I care about. That's something that it's like it's a hard life because to be dependent on others, whereas it's really about, how can we depend on ourselves to basically float our own boat, right? And then we get to choose where we sail in this sea of possibility that is life. And when we're sailing, it's nice to know, like, well, what are some things that can make the ride a little bit more enjoyable? What can allow us to navigate the waters a little bit more smoothly? And sometimes it's knowing like how the waters operate. So that's where today's topic comes in about who do you got to keep happy in life, in career especially, because this is I learned while working in Germany. This was in but 2011. I had the opportunity to work for 6 months at a research lab. This was back with Intel. They had it in a small little city in Braunschweig, Germany, which only about a quarter million people, but it's still very city-like because it's, hundreds and hundreds of years old. It's the Löwenstadt, which is the Lion City. So I'm sure my listeners that speak German are like, "Wow, you just slaughtered that, Justin." But I come all the way from the U.S. I've never been to Germany before, and if I get my first sit down with the my manager, who is the director of this group, and he is a Norwegian man managing in Germany. He was maybe one of the most beautiful men I think I'd ever sat across in person. He was probably like 6'3". He had beautiful, sparkling blue eyes, and his lips were like, red, and his cheeks, filled with color. I was like, is this guy wearing makeup? And it kind of dawned on me, it's like, oh, well, a lot of makeup must come from people who probably have these attributes. It's like, oh, well, let's look like, the makeup probably didn't come out of nowhere. It was like, oh, let's try to look like the people we, go like, oh, this person looks like they got something going on. But I was just like, wow, this beautiful man, and he's big, like Norwegian, like so. It's like I'm like, okay, I'm sitting across from Thor, but with shorter hair, basically. And he says to me, "Now, welcome. We're very happy to have you here. And the thing we got to make sure is that the right people stay happy. And three of us need to be kept happy. And those three people are, it's me, you, and Matthias." And you might be going like, well, who the hell is Matthias? So Matthias was the person that I was actually going to be doing work for on his project. Matthias's project was the project I was going to be doing work on. And so the point of this story is, and I believe this to be true in just about any situation in life, is there's going to be three people that need to be kept happy whenever you're interacting. This isn't one of these things where you are actually responsible for other people's happiness. You are not. Everyone's responsible for their own happiness. Yet it's more of like, do you have an awareness? Are you serving? What do you care about? You should have an awareness and a concern and a wish for these three people's happiness. Now I'm going to switch to my perspective of, there was me, the new young engineer that didn't know this place, didn't know exactly the role that I was going to be doing. It was one of those things where I was like, yeah, I think I took a couple classes on this type of work in college, but I really haven't been working on it the past year and a half. I'm sure I can figure it out. And then there's, the director who was responsible for, he paid to bring me over, and, he was paying Matthias, and he had a budget, and he had things that he needed to show upper management that justified, hey, this is why he should continue doing what he's doing. And then there was Matthias, who I will call basically the customer, or the client, or the one being served ultimately by what's being done. So let's just start with, me and the director. And so it really doesn't matter who's who in this situation. The point is, whenever two people are working together or relating together, I should be responsible for my own happiness. And then I need to communicate that if I am currently not happy in the situation, right? So it's like if there's something, it may have to do with the other person, or it may not, but it's just like, hey, really it's amazing, just that like, hey, your happiness matters. So I would advise even like having this of like, hey, the goal is that we should all be able to be happy in this situation, in this habit. And if not, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out because this is we should be aspiring to all of us being as happy and joyful as we possibly can. If not, let me know. That was really good. And the other is where it's like the other person in the situation, they also should be able to be happy and joyful in the situation, right? And so this really is saying like, well, what's the intention of us being in this relationship, whether it's work, personal, or whatever it is, even if it's just you're just doing something quick, is like, hey, we can all be happy in this, and I'm going to do my part for my happiness, and then I'm also going to whatever I'm able to, whatever I'm aware of, you know, uh, want you to be happy as well. It's like we each do what we can, but also there's a responsibility, like I'm responsible on my side and the other person is responsible on their side. And it's like, okay, yeah, Justin, this makes sense. Two people, but what's the importance of this third? Why is Matthias so important? Well, aside from the fact that he's, a brilliant man with great ideas and very smart, and then just an adventurous traveler. Like I think the guy would go walk on ice and do ice climbing and stuff for vacation. Like just incredible. So besides that, Matthias represents basically the greater purpose to whatever it is you are doing in any given situation. So if in this, it was like he was basically my customer. And so if I'm doing my coaching business or my consulting business, so when I'm working with my amazing assistant Christine, the third person is you listening, watching this. You become that third person, because it's like I want to be happy, I want Christine to be happy, but I also want you listening, getting this information to also be happy. So it's having consideration of what matters to you. And if you're like listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not happy with this at all, then let me know. That's the whole, and it's like, again, we can't be happy 100% of the time, but there's a little bit of like, well, what are we striving to? What are we doing here? And it's like, how am I'm here to serve you, the listener, you, the viewer. And I want, when Christy, that's what we're collectively working towards, something greater than just ourselves. And so if you're in any place of work, if there's not that third person, that's probably not good. That probably is not going to be the healthiest thing. And so you might be going like, well, Justin, what about a relationship? This is probably why often there ends up being, pets or the other goals or children is because it ends up being like, well, now we have the third thing to rally up against or for. Hopefully you're not against your pets or against your kids. I don't know. It's about what are you in this for? Even without that, there could just be a little bit more of a philosophical purpose of the exploration of joy or just the exploration of love or the exploration of communication. There could be, that you're serving higher values, right? And so it's sort of like if these values aren't being kept happy, I mean the value doesn't care, but it's being served. So it's like if you're relating and the whole purpose is communication or integrity or growth or adventure or fun, and that's not being satisfied, then, and these are all values that I find important when I'm in relating with anybody, if that's not being honored, explored, served by what the two people involved are, then whoa, something probably needs to be done. And, in these, and when it's like an ideal, it's going to have a hard time. So it's up to each person to have that awareness, which is again why I'm calling this or, saying this subject is the three people you need to keep happy is because it's like it requires having that awareness, that checking in of am I in alignment with what I set out to be in alignment with, which, if it's two people working for the greater good of, just one customer or a client, or maybe it's a whole business, right? And we see this like with large corporations, it's like who do they serve? Who do they serve? Who does the largest corporation serve? Shareholders. Um, I'm not going to get into that, But there's always the third person, and the more you can know be aware of who the third person is, what the third person cares about, and how to stay in alignment with that, then the easier it's going to be for the other two people to also be in alignment with that happiness goal. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be happiness. It could be joy, it could be contentment, it could be self-realization. There's probably a number of things, but I feel like this model is very brilliant, and it's something that's been with me ever since I learned it in 2011. Of like, okay, boy, yeah, who's involved here, and who do I need to be aware of, and then what's my part in it, and then recognizing that everyone else has a part in it too, and that just because the director wasn't happy doesn't necessarily mean I messed up. That just meant that they need to let me know, like, well, what's out of alignment, right? Matthias didn't know, wasn't happy. It's like, okay, well, if I notice, I want to ask and like, hey, what's going on? And so it's just like, hey, we're all going to do our best to come towards this. And if we're all working towards that, things go really easy. And again, we're human, and sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we miss things, sometimes we hold back, or we're not even aware that something's bothering us till it's too late. And then maybe somebody gets frustrated or angry, and then you work on it. Each person to their best goes, oh, this is what we're working for. Just let's see if we can get to that, get in alignment. And sometimes you can't always get into that alignment. And it's like, well, maybe it's just time to come to a new arrangement. And that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other episode. I've probably talked about it in the past. Maybe if you're interested, you can talk about it in the future. So, please comment, let me know. With that, I want to call this the wrap up of the first of the renewed, redistributed, rewidened Engineering, Emotions, and Energy show. So thank you so much. With that, take care and good day. Thanks for tuning in to Engineering, Emotions, and Energy with Justin Wink, Ph.D. Today's episode resonated with you? Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback not only supports the show, but also helps others find us and start their journey of emotional and energetic mastery. You can also help by sharing this podcast with someone you think will love it just as much as you do. Together, we're engineering more amazing lives.